Hello, Alex and Nicole. Jordan from Outway here. I'm here to give you a bit of advice based on our recent conversation. Now, here's the scenario that we discussed. What I understand is your situation. So you've moved up to Karratha, you've taken on a dream job as well, and it's offering a very potentially lucrative housing package, which is unique in this part of the country. So you are looking to purchase a house. You are possibly, well, you're definitely going to live in it, but you're possibly going to either have the employer pay you an allowance for that house, or if you buy it as an investment property, then you can be paid rent to live in a house, which is, as I said, a unique tax structuring arrangement to remote parts of the country, such as where we live here. So what do? We looked at firstly your debt capacity, which is very, very good. Literally no problems there, and it does mean that there's a lot of freedom with what we do here. So calculator here, I've set up your salaries, including allowances, and that is the base. It's not the rental that's actually going to be paid on this property. We've also got all of your existing property in there with rent coming in, and we've got including the house you're looking to purchase. And that's essentially the allowance that might otherwise go into the top section down here as rent for your other properties. And as a result of these rents in particular, you've got a very, very, very strong debt capacity, which means almost any lender is open to you. And that means when it comes to narrowing down those sort of more limited choices in Karratha, we have the best of the pick effectively. So this measures debt capacity. We've got some lender rates here, and we've also got the lenders themselves. And if we arrange this by rate, we actually can see the top picks. And as we know, these two banks will do lending in Karratha and at the loan to value ratios that you want. But in addition, you've got enough property equity that potentially we don't even need to use the Karratha house as security. And there's a lot of options here. What I've done here is, firstly, let's go to what we discussed in our meeting. You're looking to buy in Karratha, we've mentioned that. You are looking to protect liquidity, so you want to have some cash funds available at the end of the day. Ideally, that means purchasing this property with all debt. You're looking for flexibility, so principal and interest structures, variable rates, offset accounts. That is totally fine with you. I've mentioned that you do have high debt capacity, lots of equity, so there's optionality about how we structure the loans here. So what are the principles I'm going to apply, given this is quite a wide open scenario? Well, first and foremost, for your banks, it's going to be easier for you to track. And it also gives you, so you don't have multiple banks to log into. It gives you greater leverage with pricing, and that's a good thing for not only the deal up front, but then also subsequently when we do reviews on these loans, they're going to look to retain you because it is a good set of loans in the bank size. You like positive gearing, so loss making on properties isn't your thing, and that's fine. That's even more weight towards this idea of purchasing an investment in Karratha and having your employer pay you rent. Now, you're also positioned to take advantage of equity for other purposes. And so this is a proposal that I'm putting together for you. Is there further that you could take this structure rather than just doing the thing, which is buying the house? So I'm suggesting that there is buy the house, get into a better tax structure. It's obviously a lucrative deal for you. Clean up the accounts, deal with one lender, gain that leverage. And in addition, with the extra equity, this might open up the opportunity to borrow to invest. And as long as your investments are paying more than the rate of interest, then it makes sense to do that. So recommendations: one bank, pooled facility, best use of interest. So we're talking essentially one loan with multiple securities behind it, all investment purpose, because there's no owner-occupied house in the mix here. And that way you've got full tax deductibility across all loans. Ideally, it's a lender who is happy to lend in Karratha. As I mentioned, the two banks, ING and Macquarie, can do that. They're also up there amongst the best price banks, but it's not necessary to have to go to those two lenders. Also, I'm implying here multiple offsets. So if there is one tidy large loan facility, it is suggested by me to utilise multiple offsets so that you could have the income accounts associated with those rental properties all split up, and that makes it easier at tax time. Basically, what runs through those accounts is the income and expenses associated with that property. Okay, now there was this question which sort of touched on tax. Now, obviously, I'm not a tax practitioner. These are questions which I would suggest you take to your accountant, and I can definitely recommend a very good accountant in these areas, familiar with the tax schemes that apply here locally. Now, firstly, when you have rental income associated with houses in craft, many lenders apply this thing called yield capping, and you don't actually get the benefit of the full rental income or even 80% of that rental income as many other areas will. Luckily, you do have surplus, substantial other income, other sources in the mix, and so the yield capping isn't going to cause a problem for your debt capacity. So when it comes down to do you buy an owner-occupied house or an investment house, tax is a better consideration. If it's owner-occupier, you are going to get the allowance paid to you as an income, and it's not tax deductible. So that just bumps you up into that top tax bracket, as you already are, and incurring higher tax on that allowance. As an investment, the debt associated with buying the investment becomes tax deductible, and you can split the ownership percentage between you and Nicole to better that tax outcome, given it will actually be a positively geared property. So the thing that probably you need to talk to your accountant about is capital gains tax. As an owner-occupied house, you won't pay it. As an investor, you will, even though there may be a discount. The key is, how long are you going to be here? What's your thought process about Karratha? Will you ultimately look to sell? The strategy really that works for Karratha is to not have a fixed time frame. If you're going to go into any market that has something like variability in its capital growth outcomes, then you need to be super flexible with when you decide to sell. I think given the amount of equity you have in the mix here, you can be super flexible, and therefore it's probably not a bad idea to buy an investment property which allows you to, manage that capital gains outcome. Okay, so here are some of the tables. Here's the recommendation. I've just tracked your existing loan balances, limits, redraws and offsets, leading to the amount of cash available and the debt. There's also the interest rates. Now, clearly some of these loans have been around for a while and they've tracked up in rate, are certainly not the most competitive available. So what I'm proposing here, including the purchase in Karratha, is that you can take one large loan facility with one of the best price banks, Macquarie, certainly comfortable with Karratha-based security, and tidy it up, one facility with a redraw of 300,000. So there's 300,000 in excess of the actual current lending requirement, and then you keep your offset balance too. Now, what you can do with that cash, it's time to have a chat to your accountant to discuss how your superannuation looks. There are concessional contributions that can be made on top of employer super each and every year, and that you can catch up concessional contributions that weren't made in prior years. Definitely have a talk to your accountant about that and the merits of taking some of this surplus cash and investing it in that way. Proposed interest rate, proposed repayment, total rent that you'll get, net cash flow, you are definitely positively geared, so we're ticking off that requirement. And then just down the bottom here, I've laid out the actual uses of cash in this transaction, including the payout of existing loans. So effectively what your final position will look like. Hope that is valuable to you. Look forward to working with you and getting this loan submitted and approved. Cheers, guys.